What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So I want to go ahead and continue with this top 10 ABA players list. Just to do a brief recap. At number 10, I had Louis Dampier. At number 9, I had Jimmy Jones. And at number 8, I had the Roger Brown. And at number 7, I have Dan Issel. Now, I know a lot of these names don't jump out at you. And, you may be expecting like some of the players that played in the ABA for a couple of years, but, probably had some of their best moments or more memorable for their NBA careers. But see, that just goes to show you how little the ABA is respected and talked about today. It's a shame because, you hear a lot of lies from people talking about how the ABA wasn't all that talented. But if that's the case, then why is it that, if I'm not mistaken, in the exhibition games that the NBA players and the ABA players play against each other, I think they're about 500. So, as a matter of fact, in some notable games, the ABA won against their NBA counterparts. So, it's always been this thing where the NBA wants to downplay the ABA. And that goes all the way back to when the ABA was in existence. And I understand it, they saw this competition, but don't act like you didn't absorb 4 of their franchises. It took a lot of their, they had a tremendous influence on the NBA. Both gimmicks, 3-point line, look what we have today, slam dunk contest, and style of play. The NBA in 1969, 67 was a more conservative game, a more grounded game. By 1977, 1978, look at the style of play. So anyway, Dan Issel. Or Issel. I tend to say Issel, but sometimes it pops out Issel. I would say since 2001, he's been sort of ostracized from the NBA because of an incident that happened when he was the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. If I remember correctly, it may have been after a loss. A fan threw a beer at him, I believe, or a beer in his direction. I think that fan may have been of Hispanic origin, and Dan Issel said something extremely inappropriate to that fan. So, look, even then we were starting to become a lot more or less tolerant of certain things. Now, I'm not saying that he's a bigot, but he said something that was something you maybe got away with 20, 30 years ago, but not starting in the 2000s. And I believe he was promptly fired. And he's just not talked about enough, as a player. I'm not talking about as a man, but as a player. He's the most prolific scorer in the history of the University of Kentucky. He's still the all-time leading scorer. And he was a prolific scoring machine in the ABA. This is his resume as an ABA player. He won the ABA championship in 1975 with the Kentucky Colonels. That team boasted 4 Hall of Famers. Issel, Artis Gilmore, Louis Dampier, and their head coach, Hubie Brown. I believe it's the only championship that any of them ever won. And it's kind of messed up because that team probably would have been primed to win more titles, but the very next year the ABA folded. So it is what it is. He was an NBA All-Star in 1977 after the merger, 6-time ABA All-Star, ABA All-Star Game MVP in 1972, on the All-ABA First Team in 1972, 4 times All-ABA Second Team. He was the ABA Rookie of the Year 1970-71, ABA Scoring Champion 1970-71. He won the J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award in 1985, but that's when he was with the Denver Nuggets in the NBA. He's on the ABA All-Time Team. Number 44 retired by the Denver Nuggets. And he's, as far as college is concerned, consensus First Team All-American 1970, consensus Second Team All-American 1969. When you combine his ABA and NBA scoring, he scored 27,482 points, grabbed 11,133 rebounds, and dished 2,907 assists. Dan Issel was born in 1948 in Batavia, Illinois, son of Robert and Eleanor Issel, and grew up with sister Katie and brother Greg. Growing up in Batavia, Issel's backyard was adjacent to his friend Ken Anderson's backyard. And Ken Anderson became a National Football League quarterback with the Cincinnati Bengals and the 1981 NFL Most Valuable Player. Another Batavia high school teammate was future sports announcer Craig Sager, who was a freshman at Batavia when Issel was a senior. Said Issel and his Batavia teammates, "What Batavia instilled in all three of us, myself, Kenny, and Craig, was a solid work ethic." According to Sports Illustrated, Don Vandersnick showed Issel how to dunk by training him with a volleyball and had Issel jump up and grab the rim 50 times each day at practice. Issel did not start for Batavia High's basketball team until he was a junior, and considered himself fortunate that he had Vandersnick as his coach, saying, "If he had told us that if we dove off a water tower, it would make us better basketball players, there would have been a line waiting to do it." Issel was recruited by Northwestern Illinois and Wisconsin, but he chose Kentucky. Issel then played college basketball at the University of Kentucky under legendary coach Adolph Rupp. As a senior at Kentucky, Issel averaged nearly 34 points per game, 36 points per game in the NCAA tournament to help Kentucky reach the Elite Eight. Issel was at UK between 1966 and 1970 and scored 2,138 points for an average of 25.7 points per game and had 1,078 rebounds, while being named an All-American for 2 of the 3 seasons he was eligible for the award. His career points total remains the highest among UK men's players. On February 7, 1970, Issel scored 53 points in a 120-85 victory over Ole Miss, breaking Cliff Hagan's single-game record of 51. Issel's mark held for almost 4 decades, until Jody Meeks scored 54 points against Tennessee on January 13, 2009. Issel also scored 51 at Louisiana State University on February 21, 1970, currently the 3rd best mark in school history. Issel's career at Kentucky coincided with that of Pistol Pete Maravich at SEC rival LSU, who scored an NCAA record 3,667 points, or 44.2 points per game. Maravich and Issel finished 1 and 2 in SEC Player of the Year voting in each of their 3 seasons. A 3-year starter for Kentucky, Issel led his team to 3 Southeastern Conference titles and set 23 school records in his career. Upon Issel's graduation in 1970, he was drafted by the Detroit Pistons in the 8th round of the NBA and the Kentucky Colonels' 1st round of the ABA. Issel signed to play basketball for the Colonels and the ABA. In his first season, Issel led the ABA in scoring for an average of nearly 30 points per game, 29.9, and pulled down 13.2 rebounds per game. He played in the 1971 ABA All-Star Game and was selected to the All-ABA second team. Issel shared ABA Rookie of the Year honors with Charlie Scott of the Virginia Squires. Issel's success did not stop there. En route to the Colonels' 1971 ABA Finals appearance that postseason, Issel averaged 28.1 points per game and 11.6 rebounds per playoff game. Despite these phenomenal numbers, the Colonels lost to the Zelmo Beatty-led Utah Stars in a closely contested 7-game series. The following season, Issel played in 83 of 84 games and raised his scoring average to 30.6 points per game. He was named the MVP of his second All-Star game for scoring 21 points and collaring 9 rebounds. Issel made the All-ABA first team of that season. Helped by dominant 7'2" center Artis Gilmore, the 1974-75 Kentucky Colonels won the championship with key support from Issel and sharpshooting guard and fellow Kentucky Wildcat Louis Dampier. In Game 4 of the series, Issel led all scorers with 26 points. In 6 seasons, Issel led the league in total points 3 times, including the record 2,538 and 71-72, and was an All-Star each year. Prior to the 1975-76 season, the Colonels traded Issel to the Baltimore Claws, formerly the Memphis Sounds, for Tom Owens and cash. The Claws folded before the season's start, and Issel was subsequently traded to the Denver Nuggets for Dave Robish and cash. I just want to make a comment right here before I keep going with this. One of the problems with the ABA, from what I've read, what started happening was, the ABA always experimented with providing basketball in cities that previously did not have a city with a professional sports league, in particular basketball. One of the problems I think that they ran into, I think the Virginia Squires is an example of that. They were trying to introduce basketball in cities or in regions or cultures that were not really prone, really basketball havens. You know what I mean? Like if you have a team in Indiana, that should work because they had a basketball culture. They have a basketball culture, especially college basketball. But some of these other cities they would go to is more of a football culture, or maybe a college basketball, but they weren't really filling the pro team, and attendance was low. That plus the fact that the ABA owners initially were promising stars more money than the NBA. But what happened was, ultimately, as attendance, after the novelty of the ABA wore off a little bit and attendance started to fall, they still had to pay these guys the money. So ultimately, as the ABA teams began to flounder and then fold, they to come away with a profit often, they would sell their best player, or to keep float, they would sell or trade their best player. And that's something that happened a bit in the ABA until ultimately the league folded. That's a little bit of a simplistic argument. I'm not an economics professor, but I do remember reading about that. Anyway, during his first season on the Nuggets, Issel and his new team finished with an ABA best 60-24 record and advanced to the ABA Finals, where he averaged 23 points and 13 rebounds during a contested 6-game series loss. For his ABA career, Issel was a 6-time ABA All-Star, 5-time member of ABA All-Pro Team, the ABA's second all-time leading scorer, behind Louis Dampier, was the 1972 NBA All-Star Game MVP, 1971 ABA Co-Rookie of the Year, led ABA in scoring in 70-71 with 29.4 points per game and holds the ABA record for most points in the season, as I said earlier, with 2,538 in 1971-72. Issel remained with the Nuggets following the merger and represented Denver in the 1977 NBA All-Star Game. He remained productive, topping 20 points per game 5 of his remaining 8 years. Issel played a key role in helping the Nuggets make the postseason every year of his tenure in the NBA, alongside fellow stars David Thompson, Bobby Jones, Kiki Vandeweghe, and Alex English. On January 31st, 1980, Issel scored an NBA career-high 47 points, including making 19 of 23 free throw attempts in a 127-126 win over the New Jersey Nets. On January 21st, 1981, Issel grabbed an NBA career-high 21 rebounds while also scoring 32 points in a 129-115 victory over the Spurs. During the 84 NBA playoffs, Issel averaged his highest postseason per game scoring average since his ABA days with 27.4 points per game during a 2-3 series loss against the Utah Jazz. Retiring following the 84-85 season, after the Nuggets were eliminated in the Western Conference Finals by the Lakers, he received the NBA's J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award during his last season for his outstanding service to the community. In 9 seasons and 718 NBA games with Denver, Issel averaged 20.4 points per game and 7.9 rebounds per game. Wearing number 44, Issel is the Nuggets' second all-time leading scorer. He accumulated over 27,000 points in his combined ABA and NBA career, trailing only Kareem, Wilt, and Julius Erving when he retired. Issel currently ranks number 11 on the all-time combined ABA-NBA scoring list. He missed only 24 games in 15 seasons, earning him the moniker The Horse. He was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame class in 1993. As I said, he had a coaching career. He retired and spent many, many years in retirement doing some color commentary for Kentucky basketball, the college team, from 88 to 92. Even though he had no coaching experience, Bernie Bickerstaff recruited him as Nuggets head coach in 1992. In 1994, Issel led his team to the playoffs with their first winning record in 4 years. We all know what they did in 94. That's the year they upset the Sonics in the first round and nearly came back from an 0-3 deficit to defeat the Utah Jazz before bowing in the second round. He resigned 34 games into the 1994-95 season after facing criticism for his coaching style, saying he didn't like the person he'd become. Issel returned to the Nuggets in 1998 as president and general manager. He named himself head coach again in December 1999, yielding his general manager's duties to Kiki Vandeweghe. His second tenure was far less successful than his first, and the Nuggets did not post a winning record during this time. As I mentioned earlier, his Nuggets tenure ended in December 2001. On December 11th, after a close loss to the Charlotte Hornets, Issel heard a fan taunting him. So I thought it was somebody throw a beer. Okay, it wasn't that. As he walked off the court at the Pepsi Center, Issel said a remark that I'm not going to repeat. And he publicly apologized, but the damage was done. Certain ethnic community, Hispanic community, was very upset. Ultimately, he took a leave of absence and then resigned later that month. Before I go, I want to describe his game a little bit. He was not the biggest player, 6'9", 230, 235. Generally played power forward, but sometimes played center. He wasn't a great leaper. He wasn't the quickest guy, wasn't the strongest guy. But he got a lot of his points came from his jump shot. He was a great mid-range jump shooter. Great mid-range jump shooter. I think his range went out generally to about 19, 20 feet. But he could occasionally step out and hit three-pointers. I think he was about a 78, 79% free throw shooter, so he was a great free throw shooter. And he had he had a pretty good inside game in essence that he had a good pump fake. He could drive the basket. He just wasn't. His game wasn't beautiful to watch, but he was effective. And I think that's why it doesn't come up. He doesn't come up a lot because he wasn't the most beautiful player to watch. But when you looked at the box score, you see this guy who looks like he should be, more of a mechanic than a basketball player or something. And you look, and he had 40 points, and you wondered how the hell he get 40 points because he was just a basketball player. You know what I mean? He wasn't the greatest, the most aesthetically pleasing guy. But then again, when you watch LeBron James play, he's not the most aesthetically pleasing basketball player either. But he gets the job done. In the ABA, he averaged 25.6 points per game and 10.9 rebounds per game. So I just want to put that out there as well as far as his ABA production. But anyway, at number 7, I have Dan Issel. Tell me what you guys think.